Hey, what's up, guys? It's Zeke from A to Z Sports, and welcome back to another episode. In today's episode, we'll be looking at the NBA playoffs and what my predictions are. And not just mine. We actually have a special guest on the show today. This guy is ranked number 1 in the state of Indiana in cross-country skiing. If you follow any of the Winter Olympics, it's a really fun sport to watch, and it's huge. So, without further ado, welcome Mr. Edison Byrum to the channel.
Hey Zeke, how you doing?
Good, how are you? Have a seat. So what we'll be talking about on the episode today is the NBA playoffs, and we're about in the midway point of the playoffs, and you've been following it closely.
Getting close to the finals.
Yep, Edison is a huge sports fan, so he follows a lot of sports and stuff. And so first we're going to do a quick recap of what's been going on in the playoffs. It's been a really interesting playoffs.
It has been.
To watch. And so we're going to just do a quick recap. I didn't get to give my predictions for the playoffs. I haven't been getting as many videos out, but that's okay. We're going to start cranking out videos again. And so, so what's happened so far? We're about to see actually a pretty interesting series between the number 1 seed in the West, a surprise actually season, the Jazz, against the Memphis Grizzlies. And so we got to see playoff John Morant. He hadn't been in the playoffs yet. He's a young player. He got to get in there. We've seen a lot of star players for the Grizzlies come out. And so it's just nice to see that this Grizzlies team does have a future and could make an impact in the West. So, we just saw the Jazz get beat by the Clippers. So, for both of those teams, we're just going to focus on this for a little bit. What are your thoughts on, how each team could improve and, where you think they'll be next season? Because, obviously, the Jazz have, a lot of talent, and Donovan Mitchell is one of the best players in the league.
I think that those two teams in the next year or two are going to be a big threat to the other NBA teams around their conference,
because
and
both teams are really young. Rudy Gobert just won Defensive Player of the Year, which was a big award. He's the center for the Jazz, and then of course Mike Conley. He's getting older, but he still makes good plays.
Right.
So,
and good plays kind of help the team out, and I mean you have to
he's
make
kind of
strong plays.
A leader out there, but
right.
And then Jordan Clarkson, he was also the 6th man of the year, so he's the first man off the bench. So we have 2 award winners for the Jazz, 2 major awards. So they're definitely going to be moving along, progressing towards the next year. So they definitely will be back. I could see him being a top seed again.
Right.
And then the Grizzlies, definitely. Also in the West, the 2nd seed, the Suns, who are also a young team, led by another veteran point guard, Chris Paul.
Yes.
And then Devin Booker, of course, is amazing. DeAndre Ayton. And then Mikal Bridges has shown out. He's from Villanova. And then, of course, Jay Crowder, who's just been kind of a journeyman. He's been all over in the NBA. And so he's played good roles for them. And they took down the Los Angeles Lakers, who just got back Anthony Davis and LeBron James. I know you have a lot of thoughts on this series, so...
Yeah, so I think that LeBron James is just... He can be too much at some times and just kind of ball hog it a little bit too much.
He is on the downturn of his career. I actually say that at this point, Anthony Davis is probably the leader of the team.
Right.
Well, maybe not the leader in the locker room yet, because LeBron plays a huge role in that, but definitely he is yielding sort of to Anthony Davis, because Anthony Davis is just phenomenal.
Right.
So, but we did see this Lakers team lose, and they were up 2-1. It looked like they might take the series. They were the 7th seed, but with everybody back, it looked like they could take out the Suns team. It's what do you think kind of led to their fall? I know Anthony Davis was out for that one game, and LeBron just kind of didn't get the job done in that game where he should have took it home. So what are your thoughts on that? What do you think led the Lakers to blow this lead, and LeBron's first loss ever in the first round? He never lost in the first round of the playoffs until this season with this pretty stacked Lakers team. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think a team can't really be run by two main players. Yes, they could probably move the ball around together pretty easily, but I mean, you're gonna need at least a third or fourth guy on that team to, get other plays going defensive wise, especially.
It's true. Their defense did step up this season, but against the Suns, it was just terrible. The Suns just lit it up from three. So that was interesting to watch. And then, of course, we had two interesting teams. The third seed, Denver Nuggets, who Nikola Jokic, their center, just won MVP of the league, and it was their team taking on the Trailblazers with Damian Lillard, who has been just outstanding.
Damian
in the
Lillard
playoffs, in his range, what he can do. So this series looked like it could be close. It went down to Game 7. Both teams going back and forth, but in the end, the Nuggets were just able to take it home, even without Jamal Murray being out for them. So, what are your thoughts on that? I know the Trailblazers are actually starting to get older,
right?
So maybe they might be trending down. Well, the Nuggets still look like they could bring pieces back. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
I don't think that the Trailblazers will be in the playoffs. They've kind of have to rebuild their team since they are getting a much older age. So.
And then the Nuggets, they moved on, and they faced the Suns, who had just beaten the Lakers and were looking really good. And that was in 6 games. But the Nuggets were also looking very good without Jamal Murray. But this series ended in a sweep. The Nuggets were swept 4-0 to the Suns, who are looking amazing. Probably the best team in the West right now. Them and the Clippers are going to have an amazing battle in the finals of the Western Conference. But I don't know. I guess what you were saying earlier, you made a good point, how you need a more complete team without Jamal Murray.
Right.
I know.
And then you have Chris Paul, who's going out due to COVID. So he'll probably miss 1 or 2 games in that series.
That's true.
That's going to be...
Yeah, he did play a good part against the Nuggets. Devin Booker, of course. The Suns do have some good players who can come off the bench, but not quite as deep as the Clippers. The Clippers probably have the deepest bench in the league. And of course, Kawhi Leonard. I know you were following him a lot in the season he won the finals. Yeah. And so he knows what it's like to have been there. Paul George, not so much, but how do you think he will be able to respond to this is the furthest the Clippers, the organization, has been in the playoffs for 50 years. Yeah, you were telling me about that.
Yeah, so earlier, I think the Clippers, they have Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, and I don't think that will be enough to beat the Suns team. I think the Suns are just on too big of a roll to be beat by the Clippers. But I do think Paul George, I think he won't crack under pressure. I think he would clutch up in key moments of the game.
He did do good in the last series. He scored 39 in one game. Actually, Terrence Mann, one player who did step up, he also scored 39. So he scored a lot of points. So he's someone who could step up, but he's definitely not as consistent as Kawhi Leonard.
Right.
I would say is probably top 3 in the league right now.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, of course, my prediction for this finals, of course, the Clippers got here. They beat the Mavericks in 7 games. We got to see Luka Doncic for the first time with Kristaps Porzingis. They did well. They just kind of cracked. In that last game 7, I thought they were going to pull it out, but they did not. So the Clippers, they've had to come down from a 2-0, they were down 2-0 in both of the series that they ended up winning. Against the Jazz, they came back. They won 6 games. and then earlier against the Mavericks, they won in 7. So against the Suns team, the Suns have just been used to just plowing through. They've only lost 2 games in the playoffs so far. So for me, I do have the Suns just because I don't think if the Clippers let them do like a hot start again, I don't think the Clippers would be able to come back against the Suns team.
Yeah.
Even if Chris Paul
I do think
misses
the
games,
Clippers will take an early lead on the Suns in the series,
Mhm.
but I think the Suns are too strong of a team to let that get by. So
Okay, that's interesting. So we do have the same pick. I'm gonna say Suns in 7. I was gonna say 6, but like
yeah, I think
It's gonna
they
be
are
tough.
both good teams. I mean, they both worked hard to get to the where they are now, but I do think the Suns will come out on top.
All right, and then so that's all for the West. We're gonna break down the East real quick, and then we'll look at some of the teams that surprised us. We're talking about some more like storyline of the playoffs instead of like all like the stats and like the breakdown and stuff. So that'll be interesting. We'll get into that. So let's just do the East real quick. So of course we've got 2 Game 7s coming up for the 4 teams remaining in the East, and that would be the Hawks versus the Sixers, which has been incredible. The Hawks have probably been one of the best stories of this
Trae
so
Young.
far. Yes, he's been so good. It's coming down to Game 7. That's tomorrow. Sixers versus Hawks. It's going to be in Philly, so they'll have home court advantage. And then 2 teams that could both win the finals, meeting in the Eastern semis, which is the Nets, who definitely have the most stacked.
Right.
roster.
Yes. You have Kyrie,
Kevin
James Harden, and
yes, and the way James Harden has kind of changed his game with the Nets just made it good because he's passing more. He's not being selfish like we saw in
and
Houston.
Katie is putting it in the bucket pretty well too.
Right now, I'd probably say KD's the best player in the league.
Yes.
As of right now, like Jokic won MVP, like if who's the best, who has the best skill set, who can score when you need him to. And in the game where James Harden had just come back from injury, this was Game 5, I believe, when it was 2-2, and they took a 3-2 series lead. And Kyrie was out. James Harden was in the game, but he was injured, so he was playing off and on. KD did come through, and we see he scored 49 points, so he's not only a scorer, he was able to get 17 rebounds and 10 assists. So he kind of filled in for what Kyrie and James Harden will normally do, and was able to lift them past the Bucks. And then Giannis, of course,
the Greek Freak. Yeah.
So this is coming down to Game 7, and it's actually halftime right now as we're recording this.
Yeah.
And it's still a very tight game. I would probably like to see the Nets win, just because once all 3 of these guys are back, you might have a different take on this than me. I want to hear yours after this, but the 3 guys, once they're all back, then it's just they'll be an exciting team to watch. I would love to see the Suns and the Nets meet. In the finals, just because Steve Nash, he's the coach for the Nets, will play against the team he was with primarily for his career. So, or like coach against them. So that should be a fun storyline. So tell me like what your predictions. I think the Nets can pull this out if Kevin Durant clutches up. But like, what are your predictions? What would you like to see?
I would like to see the Bucks take home the victory in the series.
You were telling me earlier before you might even like see them winning the finals.
Yes, I think whoever wins this series will come out on top in the NBA Finals. The Bucks didn't do so well last year. I mean, they lost early in the year in the postseason.
They lost against the Heat, which was the team that they took out in
the
a
Heat
sweep this first round. So it was kind of a revenge for them. I think the Heat can be good. They're one of the teams where I'm like, for next season, maybe this Jimmy Butler, if they can get to come back. I know there's stuff like in his contract and whatever.
Mhm.
And Bam Adebayo, one of the better players. So yeah, this Heat team could get there. The Bucks, of course, are always. Giannis is only like 25,
Right.
so like and then Chris Middleton, who played good.
Yes.
So you'd like to see the Bucks win.
Yeah, I don't think his free throw game can get better, obviously.
Yeah.
But other than that, he's great in the paint. And
So you think him and Chris Middleton could probably take them to win the finals?
I think they can. But if obviously, if we see Kyrie Irving come back and they all have those three players together, they can do some damage. And
yeah, I'm kind of torn because it's like it'd be exciting to see them on the floor, but then like if they lose, it's like, ooh, the Nets lost, and like they were so hyped up,
Right.
Like it'll be a big deal.
yeah,
So I don't know.
because when they all came together, it's like, okay, this team's kind of really in big contention to win the NBA Finals.
Alright, so then for the Hawks-Sixers game, how the Sixers got there, they faced the Wizards. They beat them in 4 pretty easily. Joel Embiid's been battling injuries this entire playoff, and that's something he's dealt with basically the entirety of his career. Even though this is only like his 4th season, he's been battling injuries. He's like a walking bucket. He gets you like 40 every night.
Yeah.
Took down the Wizards, Bradley Beal, and Russell Westbrook. Didn't have really any other supporting cast. We got to see Russell Westbrook, who is, I think, his career kind of declined once he went to Houston, but now he's back, of course, and he's doing good. The Wizards, if they can just put a couple more pieces around those two, Bradley Beal is one of my favorite players personally to watch in the league, and just if they can build around them, I think they can make a step up. But the Sixers, it was just all too easy for them with a healthy Joel Embiid. But he did get injured that 3rd game, and then they dropped the 4th game to the Wizards, and so it was 4-1. And now here they meet the Hawks, who were the 5 seed. They took down the Knicks.
Yeah.
That was an exciting series because we got to see playoff Derrick Rose again, and Derrick Rose still hasn't made it past the 1st round.
Yeah.
So tell me, I know you were a big Trae Young fan. We were
Yeah.
talking about it earlier in this episode. Like, what do you think? Do you think they can pull this out?
I think Trae Young clutches up really well. He can definitely put it in when there's pressure on him and the whole team. I think Trae Young is definitely a major key to winning the game tomorrow that they have against the Sixers in Game 7.
If
he's gonna have to play his A game.
Yeah.
Right.
But he has to play good.
Right.
He has to. Yeah, we've got Bogdanovich, also an incredible shooter. The Hawks are kind of like that surprising team. They're either lighting it up from 3 or they shoot like 20%.
Right.
So it'd be this Hawks team. Like we're gonna talk about storyline and stuff in the next segment of this episode, but like that's definitely like one of my favorite stories. And if they were able to take down the 1 seed tomorrow, and then face the Bucks or the Nets, that'd be crazy. But if I have to be honest, if Joel Embiid's healthy and stuff, and they have home court advantage, I'm gonna have to pick the Sixers because they're more complete. I think the Hawks can win like easily. I could.
Trae Young, he's a young guy, and I think he has a lot more in him too.
Yeah, the Hawks will be around for a while. So before we go to the break in this episode, we'll come back with the next couple segments. That won't take as long as this one. But I'm just gonna give my quick predictions for what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I think the Suns beat the Clippers in 7. They advance to the NBA Finals. I do think the Nets are gonna pull out this game tonight, and so they'll probably beat the Sixers. If Kyrie Irving is healthy and James Harden and Kevin Durant are out there, they'll take down the Sixers. And so it'll be Suns, Nets. I think I might pick the Suns. They're probably the team that has played the best this playoffs. I can tell that by the look you gave me. You probably
Yeah.
have another
Yeah.
prediction. So let's hear yours real quick. And we'll go back.
I do think the Suns will end up winning, and moving on to the finals.
Okay.
I think the Hawks will beat the Sixers, and the Bucks will beat the Nets.
All right. So you've got a different prediction in the East than me.
Yeah.
And then, who do you think wins that? Who do you think goes to the finals?
I think it'd be really close between the Hawks and the Bucks,
Yeah.
but I do think the Bucks would come out on top and play
That's
the
smart.
Suns.
So who you got? in the finals?
I'll probably have the Bucks winning the finals.
All right. And then this is kind of an easy question. Who you got for Finals MVP?
Giannis.
Yeah. For me, for Finals MVP, it's probably Chris Paul or Devin Booker. Chris Paul has a little bit bigger impact on the floor, but Devin Booker will put up more stats.
Yeah,
So,
he's been putting up points in these playoffs.
all right. So I think that wraps up the first segment of this episode. We'll come back with which team played up or who played down, the players, where we think it goes. Then we'll look at storylines, and that will wrap up this episode. So,
Okay.
this ends the segment.
Okay.
All right, now we'll see. Hey, what's everybody? What's up, everybody? We're back. Second part of our NBA playoff analysis video. It's Zeke from A to Zeke Sports and Edison Byrum, Indiana's #1 cross-country skier. And so we just got done with our recap of what's happened in the playoffs so far. And so in this second part of the video, we'll try to make it a little shorter, and we'll be looking at some storylines that we've been enjoying and some players that we thought performed and underperformed and stuff like that. So, Edison, you've been liking the A to Z Sports experience so far?
It's good.
It's been fun. Yeah, filming it here from 12 Mile, Indiana, and we're having fun. So, yeah, looking at some of the players that have just shown out the most, definitely Trae Young
Yeah.
leading this Hawks team. They weren't even supposed to be in contention for the playoffs this season, and they were the number 5 seed, took down the number 4 seed. Now they're in position to take down the number 1 seed, Philadelphia Sixers, led by another player I want to mention, Joel Embiid, who has scored a tremendous amount of points in the playoffs. Just been performing really well. And in the West, we've seen some players shine out, like Chris Paul has been leading the Suns team very well. Devin Booker. There's been a lot of stand-up players on the Suns. That's mainly why I picked them to win. Cameron Payne off the bench has been really good. So, what other storylines do you want to look at? I know this Nets storyline was really interesting, and what the possibilities are for that.
Right. The Nets have just kind of been like rotating Kyrie, KD, and James Harden out. Just kind of been playing in pairs.
Because there's a lot of ways. They start off with all 3 of them on the floor, but then there's all sorts of ways that they can mix it up.
Kind of combos.
With Blake Griffin, we haven't really talked about this
Blake
podcast.
Griffin,
How they signed Blake Griffin. That was awesome. Crazy. It's crazy how they were able to do that.
Right.
Joe Harris, who had the best 3-point percentage in the league this year. So their bench isn't the best, but what they the combinations that they can play, they've always got an all-star player on the floor. Because they never rest all 3 of them at a time, unless they're getting blown out or blowing someone out. So yeah, there's a lot of ways. We're learning a lot from this 2021 NBA playoffs. This might be the decline of LeBron James, like we talked about.
Yeah.
All sorts of stuff. We got to see a lot of players get to shine out in the playoffs. I wanted to see Luka Doncic make it past.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that Luka and the Mavericks kind of didn't really move on.
Because they were up 2-0 against the Clippers. I thought they could finish them.
Right, and Luka has just been a major asset to that Mavericks team, and I was surprised that he didn't kind of carry them. a little bit.
Rick Carlisle for the head coach for the Maps just stepped down. So I think it'd be whoever is able to get hired for that job will have an amazing amount of talent on their hands. Like I was surprised that Carlisle stepped down when he had a superstar talent like Luka, who's probably, in my opinion, like top 5 right now in the league. And and then Jalen Brunson, all these guys that they can work in. This team definitely has a future. They were number 5 seed in the West, and the West has been really tough.
Yeah.
And so that's also another interesting storyline to look at. We got to see John Morant in the playoffs for the first time as well. We still haven't got to see the Pelicans. They didn't make the playoffs this year. But I do want to see Zion and Brandon Ingram and Lonzo Ball, the 3 of them, make the playoffs and see what they can do. Because
I do think that Zion Williams is a talented player.
Yeah.
But just the way people talk about Zion Williams and how good he is, I don't think he's that good in my opinion.
Okay.
He should be good enough to like carry the team,
just
kind of motivate the team.
John Morant, he was drafted in the same class.
Mm-hmm.
He basically led the Grizzlies all the way to the playoffs.
Right. I think Zion has that talent to help the team get better.
He has underperformed.
Make the players, but
I'd say the best player on that team is Brandon Ingram, in my opinion. Just all that he can do. We haven't even talked about the Warriors yet.
Yeah.
They got knocked out in the new play-in tournament that the NBA introduced last year, then they brought it over to this year. Just the lowest 4 teams, the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th seed from each conference, they have a little play-in that they do to secure the seeds. And the Warriors were knocked out by the Lakers. And so Steph, he was the top 3 MVP. I would have either voted for Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, or Steph Curry. So those are my final 3 for MVP this year. So once Clay comes back, he's been out for 2 seasons.
Yeah.
It's crazy to imagine.
I think he's kind of ready to get back out there on the court.
He definitely is. Draymond, if he can start making the right plays, then that'll be the original 3 that they still hold the record for the best overall record in the league all time at 72, and actually they only lost 9 games, so they would have been 73 and 9. That's just crazy.
Yeah.
But they don't have prime Andre Iguodala anymore. So it is interesting to see the Warriors that they were so good, and they didn't even make the playoffs this year.
Right. Yeah.
So, also some news in the NBA. We're gonna wrap up with. Kemba Walker did just get traded from the Celtics to the Thunder, and they traded a first-round pick away too. Al Horford is back on the Celtics, and that's what I'm excited about because he was one of my favorite players with the Celtics. Now back with Jason Tatum, and a much better Jason Tatum than he was with. He has developed, and now he is an outstanding player. Jason Tatum is, and so, the Celtics. They're a lovable team when they're good. They get a lot of hate though. So yeah. And so I guess that wraps up our NBA playoffs analysis video.
Yeah.
With special guest Edison Byrum. He knows his stuff, guys. It was really awesome to have him on the show today, and we got to discuss this, and we'll see how it goes. I could be right, he could be right, both of us could be wrong. We got some stuff we agreed on, but it was fun figuring it out today. I had fun. I know you had fun too. So, I guess that's it. Until next time.
Yep.
All right.
Awesome.